We were there when the pledge was taken. We'll either educate, entertain, or will not bother you. So, apparently when someone asked Rabindranath Tagore what Western models should India follow, he said something very interesting. He said, God has given different question papers to different countries. There is no use copying. Okay? So, we don't know whether all the learnings that we spoke of, over the last 2 days, whether a lot of it is relevant to the participants of this forum. I also don't know how much justice the introduction that the gentleman just did does to this forum, because he said startups which have little or no money. Anand and Poonam were chuckling when he said that. Okay.
I qualify.
Yeah. So there is a lot that is there to be discussed. So without much ado, let me go straight in. Since yesterday, reputation capital has been one word that's been often used, where the context is a business is built on 3 capitals: financial capital, human capital, and reputation capital. So, let me ask you, has the emphasis on reputation been adequate, more than adequate, less than adequate over the years? Maybe Saumil could take this as somebody who's been a serial entrepreneur. He's a guy who is 50 plus, who looks young, sitting here. Serial entrepreneurs need to be at least that age, and therefore the number. And if you could take us through what your experience has been when it comes to reputation being accorded its due over the years.
Thanks. First of all, thank you for inviting me. Good to be here. Nice place. We started this journey of getting kids to play. So the way we see reputation is sometimes there's an issue with the category itself that you choose. We chose this category of getting kids to play in schools, and we had the issue of the reputation of the PT class itself. How do you undo the reputation of a PT class being boring and not worthwhile and change it to something that a school should invest in? So there was the interesting thing of the category itself, not about the product, not about the team. The category itself needs some reputation management.
You just spoke of, but sheer quantum.
And that comes from a consumer-led business, but I'd like to first also hear what Anindita has to say, because she's in a B2B business, and we'll talk about how those two things play off in different businesses.
Yeah, we'll do that, but I'm assuming a prerequisite to reputation is comprehension, and a business like yours might not be very easy to comprehend. So, is that your first challenge when it comes to talking about reputation?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, evening everybody. I think a little sleepy, the weather is such outside. Of course, this is a very new fraternity and audience for me. I come from a very tech-centric product, Gupshup, catchy name at that, but what we essentially do is we provide messaging solutions, which is a very stack-heavy, technology-heavy backend, and it's very difficult for us to articulate ourselves, so I head the product team, so obviously I'm more into the technology, but I was also given the portfolio of product marketing, and I had no clue where to begin. So I was given this brief saying, get a tech PR. I don't know what that means, because the moment I was talking to different PR agencies and marketing agencies, it was very difficult to exchange or tell them or educate them on what is it that we are actually doing. So we essentially make messaging bots for social communication channels like Facebook and Twitter and so on and so forth. It's a new ecosystem that's evolving after what Facebook has said and what Apple has done and so on and so forth, artificial intelligence, NLP and so on. So even before building that reputation that you guys are talking about, it is very difficult for somebody like me to be able to explain, and that's where Ravi, I think you guys came in, because I don't think such a genre exists, which is tech PR, so to speak, because PR is PR, and you know it's not commodity centric. That's where my challenge is, and from there you tend to start building your reputation. And so for me, you know, as a typical use case, none of the tried and tested methods work. It has to be exceptional in a manner that it is not the regular practices of PR. You have to go out of the box, you have to think about ideas, because I'm technically talking to developers who would want to come on my platform and create their technology solutions.
I can challenge you a bit there. Tech PR as a genre has always existed. It's perhaps not technology then, but the comprehension of business that is found wanting.
Yeah, I know that, you know, people have been talking about it, but the problem is that media is very aware, very savvy now, so it's impossible to just say anything and everything and put it out in a plate for them. So you have to challenge them too. They have to go figure out the technology, they have to understand what's going in, they want to see how they are catering to their target audience, because I think media has also become very competitive, online has come in, and you have various mediums. So it is, as PR professionals, it is very important for you guys or the fraternity at large to understand that what is the technology. And I think Anand and Poonam, you'll agree that behind your consumer product there's a heavy technology stack, and more often than most we don't hear a lot about it. You know, what is Oyo doing in terms of technology, or what is Ola doing in terms of technology? We don't hear a lot about that because it's more about the consumer use cases. But for me, I don't even have that layer because I'm talking to developers. So for me to do PR, it is easier in the West than here, because there, you know, and of course PR has become very non-traditional, bloggers, etc. So it's a challenge for me, definitely.
Yeah.
Ravi, sorry. I just wanted to connect to what she just said. The way we see the startup ecosystem was, initially you have a reputation because of the idea. Mobility for a billion, so on. Then you build to the reputation because of a team that believes in the idea. If you have Bhavesh and a few other people of that caliber believing in the idea, people think there's some sense here. It's not just one crazy guy, a bunch of crazy people who think that this is a good idea. Then you have reputation because of a product. Call it the stack, call it the technology system, whatever. Then you have reputation because of users, then customers, then profits. And my theory is that moment you cross the product life cycle, the reputation will be because of users and customers and profits. Very rarely will you find people going back this way and saying, by the way, give me reputation because of product. I have users, I have customers, how does it matter what my stack is? Is the way I see it.
Essentially, my customers are developers. So if I don't keep iterating on the product, so I'm really stuck on the product.
Also, is there this other problem of one is comprehension of businesses, the other is comprehension of the startup ecosystem itself, where there appears to be a divide between B2C and B2B businesses. Are B2B businesses, to that extent, Saumil and Anindita, disadvantaged?
No, I think I'm seeing an increasing push in the PR fraternity too. Like, I have absolutely zero marketing budget. I don't do any marketing. I mean, I believe in PR, and I've been doing it in the US very consistently, and now with you guys in India. Because I think PR has that kind of reach and that longevity, you know, because people are reading most of the time, people are online. So one-off marketing campaigns don't work for me at all. So I think if the PR fraternity starts understanding, starts delving deeper into it, which I'm seeing already, I think that challenge kind of goes out of the window.
Reputation in my mind, in a B2B context, finally, it's like the law of physics, right? You can only transfer reputation from one place to another. You cannot create it. So it's either my reputation which has been given to the company, that reputation of the company given to users. You cannot create, you can only build it one by one, or you can destroy it. And hopefully people like in this room help maintain it and preserve it.
Yeah.
But that is the reality. But if I take a school context, school trustees and principals are probably the least networked I would have thought, and almost zero overlap with people that I want to meet. I mean, I think I'm very well networked. I found almost only one or two people who either knew a school principal or a school trustee or ran a school. It's just difficult. In that context also, we found that the word of mouth is far more powerful as a reputation creation than any media that you can do. The media can only amplify it or protect it. Creation is brick by brick, whether it is B2C or B2B, I would say.
Yeah, contrast that with your scenarios. In his scenario, it's transferred one-to-one and therefore it's perhaps strong, but in your scenarios, it's perhaps a lot more fragile.
So I'd just like to add to that, and you mentioned about media, and now with new media and social media coming in, so in the last panel somebody talked about moment of truth, and that is a very real thing, especially when it comes to reputation. And I'll give you an example. For example, with American Express, great global brand, millions of dollars spent marketing, building product, designing card member benefits and offers. And for them, the moment of truth is that one phone call when a card member is calling with a problem or with a concern, and how does the person at the other end of the phone react? That is the moment of truth for that brand, and that's the moment of truth. That customer interaction, for a B2C business, that is what makes or breaks reputation one step at one incident at a time. And in the age of new media and social media, then it's just there for everyone to consume and sort of engage with. And that is like a huge turf for us to protect as a brand.
Yeah, and it's therefore fragile because your moment of truth is as of the last second that somebody experienced your product.
Correct. And very anecdotally there, I think, if you look at it from a point of view is where is the possibility or potential of the reputation coming in, that comes from the customer, right? Some of our largest wins, successes, things that we are reckoned for, have technically come from the customer. Right? Take Ola Port, for instance. Right? Chennai was flooding, no cars available, no cars anywhere. There were memes floating online, and the very possibility that someone said, "Hey, this is something that could happen," triggered out something that is till date remembered for, and we've kind of made it a point to ensure that whenever there is any kind of flooding or waterlogging, right, we do our bit to get our boats on the waters or on the roads and do whatever we can, right? So I think that possibility being unlocked in the mind of the consumer or the stakeholder for that matter, right? That triggers
So, see, reputation management for startups has come a full cycle from media being wary of writing about startups to a period of complete adulation. Where somebody went out and said, I have an idea, and then media wrote about that idea as though the fulfillment has already happened, to some amount of cynicism, skepticism, to now again some period of normalcy. Okay. So, we are perhaps at the beginning of the next cycle now, and if you can talk a little bit about what's in store for us.
Sure, I think
reputation management.
Sure, I think it's like the economic cycles coming one after the other, right? It's technically the same. The only difference is probably in the evolution of media. A decade ago, probably print media took the lead, saying let's start celebrating startups, and today newspapers have whole pages, whole supplements that cover companies like us, right? Today that transformation is happening in digital media. Probably in the next cycle that will be driven by consumer media or crowdsourced media. So I think each of these cycles in that sense will have some kind of an evolution. The startups themselves, I'm sure, will have some kind of evolution as well, right? This wave was probably that of consumer internet startups. The next wave I'm sure we know all the jargons, IoT and
bots
all
and
of it.
education.
Yeah. So AI and IoT and bots are probably the next whole huge cycle. But I think history repeats itself in some way, and there are definitely trends that we can see through.
So I would like to just add here that, I think the events that the PR fraternity does, I think there's a lot of change happening there too. From the traditional news launches or events that you would see in some five-star banquet, I think largely startups don't adhere to that. For example, in my case, I think hackathons work wonderfully well for me. Meetups work wonderfully well for me, and those are the kind of things that media wants to cover, and they're talking about it, and it's a great way or great mechanism for me to actually reach my target audience, which is the developer fraternity. So I think the ways that PR is being done is also going to change in a big way.
Yeah, so I told myself that I'll not ask the same question to all four, but we'll make an exception for this one question. So if you can give your perspective, the two of you, on this particular thing of what's the next way for reputation management for startups?
Well, I just want to submit that visibility is not reputation. And let's just make sure that we're clear about what we're saying. Visibility in media is not reputation. The world is too smart, the world knows when it is visible. Some of the leading companies in India are very visible, but they're not very reputed. So I just want to distinguish that part. Right? The second part is, there is this dark side to especially network-based reputations. Using a Star Wars analogy, there's a dark side, which is it's equally non-linearly amplifying negative signals. As much as it amplifies positive signals, if something goes wrong, something can go wrong very bad very soon. So we'll be cognizant of, therefore, especially in digitally connected businesses, maybe like yours, how do you manage the downside? What circuit breakers do you have to kind of kill? For businesses like ours, still one piece at a time. The problem we have from a B2B side is, I don't know what communication is going on. In a digital context, at least I know. I see Twitter feeds, I see Facebook posts, I know who's saying what. I don't know what my one school trustee is telling the other school trustee in one conference in CBSE. I have to figure out somehow that hopefully they're saying good things about me. And if they're saying bad things, how do I know what they're saying? How do I reach to them? So there are different issues around this whole. One last thing I want to leave to is that I think I'm submitting a theory that growth is sometimes inversely proportional to reputation management. There's a certain optimum rate of growth at which you can build reputation. You go beyond it, it maybe starts going down.
So two things I'd like to say here. One, on print media. I think journalists will or they should become smarter. We saw this wave of, as you say, unbridled adulation and enthusiasm, and a lot of startups and early young businesses were, sort of put on the spotlight, whether they merited it at that point of time or not. Due diligence was really not done on, some of the funding related stories that came in, and people from the startup fraternity probably know about it more than, people outside. And then, as Anand just said, there is a cycle, there's a global cycle. So we actually anticipated this entire rationalization of sentiment to kick in about 6 months ago. But I think maybe the Startup India policy had something to do with it. There was a lot of positivity and momentum in the country. But I expect that at least news media will be a lot more. They're going to be more sane, more diligent, when they're going to look at their stories and look behind the numbers. The second thing that I want to say is about digital or social, really, that we're talking about. And I think tonality and sentiment is very different from reputation. And that is something that, we as communicators need to constantly also, knock into business leaders. Because sentiment and tonality is something that you can rectify on a short-term basis. You run another campaign, you engage influencers on social media, Twitter, and you're able to, see the graph move. But does that really mean that your reputation damage has been rectified? So you have to look at it in a very holistic way.
Yeah, Ravi, I'll just add one thing. So basically, like you said, social media. In my case, the forums like Quora and Stack Overflow. Now, people tend to ignore that a lot. So when people talk to me about PR, they're like, okay, we can have news insertions or online management. But what about those forums? So we need to be smarter in terms of where is this reputation being built and what is actually the end use case that we're talking about?
I'm glad you said that. From what I gathered from the discussions since yesterday, this forum has been unequivocal in saying that reputation should be a boardroom function, it should be a business function. So, is reputation getting its due in the boardrooms?
Sure. I think that'll be a big yes when it comes to at least the Indian startup fraternity so far. PR, particularly communications, as a larger objective is something that most CEOs, young CEOs, or even older CEOs in the startup ecosystem like to hold very, very close to them. Right? With our example particularly, we've always been working very, very closely with the founder. More interestingly, apart from it just being a boardroom function, we're also looking at it as a business function. Right? Every team member, for instance, as far as my team goes, has been part of some business function or the other, be it a launch of a city or a launch of a category from a business perspective, right? And that I think will be very, very, I would say, important in the way the messaging gets shaped over time, right? So it's more of understanding of business ground up rather than it being just a comms role or a PR role, right? That brings in a very strong connect, right? And that I think qualifies straight away as a business role.
Yeah, I think you're the best example of that, where you're the spokesperson of the company. So, is that the same when it comes to B2B businesses as well?
When we say reputation as a board function, to my mind there are two aspects to it. What is being said and who's listening. So what is being said, do we have metrics for this? When I say to my board, I have a great reputation, based on what? Because 3 principals trust love me? Or does it translate into business metrics of repeat customers, increasing revenue per school, referrals? So to me the business metrics has to demonstrate the reputation. I can't just say I'm a great stud, but by the way I'm losing 50% market share. So to my mind the business metrics account for that. The other issue, Ravi, is who's listening. Very often in boards you are at the risk of low attention span members who are very often on multiple boards, who are then paying attention in that time slice to your business. So very often who's listening is as important as what is being said, and we have both the problems. Especially when you have funded organizations which have multiple stakeholders. Suddenly you have 5 people with 5 different institutions having different levels of equity, different levels of voting rights. And now what are they listening to? What are they reacting to? So unless as a business manager you are presenting the right metrics and the manifestation of that reputation on business, otherwise it's just touchy-feely, motherhood apple pie, the world loves me, I'm a stud, and that doesn't go anywhere. Then it's a bit of a flaky thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with no particular reference to the organization that you represent, Poonam, is there too much of an emphasis on investment-related stories, and does that hijack PR and reputation management? Go next.
So actually, I'd love to completely, distance myself, and the proof is in the pudding. I personally don't think funding related or financial related PR does anything for a B2C business. There is a certain audience that you're targeting with that kind of news, promotional announcement, and luckily in our case and a lot of well-funded businesses, it's not required anymore. So partially, and to what you were also mentioning, Anindita, earlier as a challenge that you face, it's an ecosystem issue, right? Media or journalists or news. Reporters not really understanding the entire or wanting to invest time in understanding the user journey or the UI or the UX of the product, and really it's much more easier and glitzier to paste these numbers off. But to your point, yes, I think, but like I said, that sanity is going to return because there is going to be a lot more diligence, and people are going to be really thinking about these numbers when they start to write them, and what are the implications of these numbers. So I don't see that as being a huge concern for readers and viewers anymore.
Yeah, I agree with Poonam. Actually, I think investor or funding stories are not at all related to reputation per se. And
is there too much of an emphasis from media?
absolutely, absolutely. The moment you float a story saying possibility of funding, or in my case, Google buying up anything that has got APIs, the excitement is huge. Journalists want to cover it, online forums want to write about it, but there is no, like Anand said, there is no research on why is there a funding possibility or why is there a funding. It is directly related to. Actually, the story is just a stop there. They say, okay, XYZ got $400 billion in funding, and that's pretty much it. But what about it? Is it raising expectations of the end user? Is it raising expectations of the market? What is it speculating? So there is no follow-up there. If anything else, this funding stories just raise a lot of pressure to the core team, and where none exists. I mean, we were leading a perfectly blissful life. We were creating great products, and suddenly this funding story comes in, and we don't know what is going to be our tone of communication anymore. We don't know, are we pressurized to release more releases? Are we pressurized to do what? So it throws us in a tizzy, definitely, if the story is not thought through.
But Ravi, this funding related issues have, customers pay you late. Customers think you're out of money, they pay you late. Your service providers ask you for increase in prices. So lots of things, other things happen which are not good for the business.
Yeah, you're right. So we had yesterday the CEO of Untitled speaking at this conference, which brings me to the point of old media versus new media kind of a debate. And possibly without any exception, if at all with the exception of Anindita, all of us need, traditional vernacular media talking about our business, because our audience today is somebody in our country who reads vernacular communications. So, have we used Indian media, regional media, vernacular media well in our effort to build reputation for our companies?
Sure. I think in our case, it plays a very important role, given the very depth of operations that we have. 102 odd cities, and you don't imagine everyone in these cities going online to read what they want to. So there is tremendous emphasis on regional media. But on the other hand, I also see a very strong trend of social conversations getting converted into interest even from regional media, which I think is classic of our times. I think there's this phenomenal opportunity for the source of the news itself to turn online than to be offline, and that trend is increasing. But having said that, I think in terms of engagement, in terms of being able to work with regional media, ensuring that your story to your specific audiences, reading that is taken up. I think there's no two things about engagement.
Yeah, regional media has been building businesses as well.
Yeah, so I think for a startup, a lot of this tier 2, tier 3 media engagement is a factor of the business or the product that they offer, and obviously their evolution in their journey. And I think Ola definitely has really led the way there, because their campaigns in reach in tier 2, tier 3 markets are legendary. Really shown the way for the market there. We've sort of gotten onto that part of our journey now, because we're really very a little younger to them, and obviously the consumer part of our campaign is just starting now. But yeah, we are engaging with regional vernacular media even more than just Hindi media.
In your case as well, I'm assuming, Saumil, because of the diversity of your audience, and given that the trustee is more likely to read in vernacular.
We've been fortunate that getting kids to play in schools as a notion is a universal theme. So then it requires no language beyond a point, but then you do need to get a message out in the region.
So, in today's time and age, we believe that there is no such thing called crisis communication, and this forum will be divided on that. When a crisis breaks out in 140 characters, how do you mitigate a crisis? how well have we done in managing crisis? Is there a way to manage crisis? If you can come about some examples.
So I don't know if there's a handbook to manage crisis. Obviously, there is a crisis response, format, template, teams that sort of take into action, and for very complex businesses which deal with consumer interactions, taking care of either their stay or transport, and it's really about the service that you offer as opposed to a transactional product that somebody's ordering online and which is getting delivered. So you have to be very cognizant and totally sensitive to that aspect of your business and always be mindful. So definitely we have a very active social team, escalation team. Anand himself might have something to say about how proactive they are. But on a serious note, we take every customer issue, grievance, concern raised online very, very seriously. We are actually tagged as a very responsive brand by Facebook, which means that 95% of the escalations get responded to within, say, 20 minutes or so. On the other parts, that there are certain crises that develop out of someone's opinion on a person or a brand that are getting too much into it. I think that is just chatter and distraction, and we don't engage with that.
I think the whole concept of crisis is got to do with the experience, right? So, in our mind, from the start, from the word go, we've always focused on taking care of the experience. There could be things that will go wrong. There will always be things that will go wrong. We're talking about millions of transactions a day, right? So there's no way everything's going to go right, at least in the kind of environment that we operate in. I think some level of preparedness on one hand, and to focus on the end experience and outcome, and communicating that in a way that is expected, sorts for it. What cuts the ice is the opportunity to convert some of these, right, as I would say, as potential case studies for ourselves, right, without thinking too much about the mileage that you get from it, but essentially taking one case, using that as an opportunity to communicate something that you want to very strongly, that will make brands stand out. So while there should be an SOP for crisis, there should also be an open eye for opportunities to convert occasional crisis to something that you want to stand out for.
Yeah, very quickly, so this actually, it's always this case for me all the time, because whenever we have a new release, it is supposed to be buggy, it is not supposed to be feature loaded. So every time I have a release, I have a lot of negative feedback, not working on different platforms, breaks up, buggy, regression, etc., so on and so forth. I think, and that's where Ravi probably helps me, some level of preparedness, like Anand said, some level of expectation setting with the customer, the end user. And I heard the lady here in the last forum who said accept it and move on. I think that really works for me. But in my case, yes, all the time. My reputation is always at stake whenever I have a major release.
Yes, so what's one really interesting anecdote, a story that you have not told anyone that you would like to share with this world, and then a lesson from there?
I think as a PR professional, one of the real challenges that for me stayed on is in one of my previous companies. I think it was day 2 of my work there, and there was a major escalation with a key business partner. I'm not going to take names, we can assume because of logic. And it got to the point where there was a complete communication breakdown, and there was a lot of stuff being put out in the press by the partner who was more like a client for us. And we could have, at that point in time, we were a B2C business, so we wanted to show it as business as usual. I think that's the first time that I actually used social, because it was not in my purview, but we used Twitter, to sort of reach out to, because we could not put out anything in the press. We didn't want to start a nasty media war, but we used Twitter to sort of reassure our customers that things are, it's business as usual, we're working with the back end, things are going to be sorted soon. And I think that sort of took care, because that's our primary audience. They're the guys who need to know that, they'll be on their next flight, and that's all I'm going to say about the brand, but, it wasn't being the show. So the fact flew, yeah.
You want to confess anything, Saumil?
Well, more than confess, we get kids to play, and across the country, working 500 odd schools across 100 cities, cultures are different. How you handle kids is different. In one part of the country, and our policy is more touch, you will engage with kids, make sure they have fun. In one part of the country, and you can figure out which one it is, giving them one tight trap is a good way of maintaining discipline. Saying if the kids are not behaving, just whack them. And we said, no, we will not whack them. And we lost our order. A principal, a trustee said, hey, you better do it, because this is the way kids are disciplined. And we said, no. Now, to my mind, it was a crisis, it was a large account, you're losing business, you're struggling for business anyway. To me, that's when your value systems get tested. And so it was interesting that what we thought was good child care practice, I lost business.
While I'm here, but I'll go. We are professionals, communication professionals, often accused of not being creative enough, being too guarded and stuff like that. Can we talk of quick examples of us being creative in the way we have communicated something, the Ola board example, not
multiple cases, in fact, and I think it wouldn't be restricted to PR, but from a point of view of how PR integrates deeper down into, say, customer support, and I'll probably just finish up with an anecdote again. But 3.5 years ago, when we were mighty tiny, 2,000 transactions a kind of a scale, where feedback used to work along with the PR team, because that was customer communication, simply put. And there was this one social alert which we got where a mom, a very irate mom, tweeted to us saying, my son missed his birthday party to the school guys. Obviously the captive reach, and we ended up depriving the child of being there at his friend's birthday party. Some very thoughtful customer support executive who used to work with me took the pains to get someone in Delhi, delivered a cake to the kid at his doorstep within 40 minutes, and said, hey, you can get a cab, but here's a cake. Right? What he didn't know was this kid was the son of a social media evangelist or so, more of a trainer. And till date, this is part of a case study that he runs on every one of his sessions.
Are you sure we didn't know?
We didn't, because it was a mom who had tweeted it. Right? But I'm saying these small things that get taken care of from a very thoughtful point of view from someone who does not know anything else but just setting things right for the customer. I think that goes a long way. So I think just coming back to business, and we are getting close to each other.
Actually, I have it just from your agency, because I remember when this whole ecosystem paradigm shift was happening, and people started saying that apps are gone and it's just going to be the age of the bots and artificial intelligence. And that's when I not name her, but the poor girl, we said, okay, maybe this is a good idea to launch in India and evangelize the space. And we tried to arrange for a news event, so to speak. And the poor girl, she went and ran around all media houses, and I don't think she would manage a turnout. And she said, oh, people don't even know what's happening, don't care, don't know, you guys are too small, don't know what you guys are doing, so on and so forth. But the girl didn't give up. And what she arranged for us was a blogathon, where we had developers hacking and talking about the technology stack, and bloggers writing about it. And believe me, we got way more coverage, we got way more word of mouth than any of the national TVs, because I think a typical Economic Times or Times of India does not work for us that much vis-a-vis a blogger, a dev blogger from Bangalore, or maybe Madurai or Udupi. So I think that was something that was extremely creative. They thought of the blogathon because in the technology industry, blogger farm essentially means content. I mean, maybe intangible content, but here we were talking about technology stack and we were hacking and we were blogging about it. I think that was very well done.
Yeah, with the disclaimer that none of those were planted. Yeah.
This is an incident from Make My Trip, and this is when I was looking at social. This is during the election time. I think a PM designate or someone from his party had mentioned that infidels or people who don't support BJP should go to Pakistan. And one of Gupshup one of the portrait of AIB actually tweeted out to the Make My Trip handle saying, do you have flights for Pakistan? And at that point in time, we had a choice here, because we could either face the collective ire of the nationalists on Twitter, but we chose to at that point in time go out and say, hey, business is great and we're thinking of launching charters, and that just went like viral. And the next day we got mainstream media coverage, which was just a bonus. But I think it just went out to show the brand being true to its, very quirky, consumer first, humorous tonality.
Yeah. So Saumil, who's actually not 50, I made that up. I'm saying somebody who is actually the age that he looks. Yeah.
So for us, what worked was this annual school health survey that we did. We do that stuff across every year, as you know, with you. And we found what worked was not to tell people that I have a product that works and here's the before after. That, what, if you use my product, if it fitness goes up by 20% and all that stuff. But what worked was to say, here's the state of the nation. The state of the nation's kids is this every year and year on year. And by the way, there are some control experiments, but let's first acknowledge that we have a problem. And just amplifying the awareness of the problem that kids need to play more. Was a very strong message, and we got a fair amount of reputation saying we are doing some stuff to spread this word that kids should play more. That kids becomes nobody's problem actually. Kids playing is nobody's problem. It just became taking in the crowd.
Lastly, while startups have been somewhat quite a bit in the last days, if there are still somebody sitting at the fence, is there quick one-line message for them on why they should try and work with startups or startups on the agency side?
So I think why not makes life not too interesting and why.
I think startups, as communication practitioners, you see startups really in a front of everything, whether it's social content, PR, so it's a huge opportunity for us to, take a bigger seat at the table and be able to, drive very good representation projects, because, that's a problem that we've heard articulated here, because, marketing is, I'm sorry, you wanted a sentence, right? But so basically content, social, PR, you get the whole house.
More challenges, no money.
I think that's
pretty much it.
The easiest part to being part of business and communicating at the same time. More business than communication to begin with, and that equation is changing in multiple balance. That balance is a great thing to work.
Thank you so much. 45 minutes is a very short time, but very long time to start. If you have time for audience questions, otherwise.
No question.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.